it's a ticket. Talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket. Talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket. Talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Head to Head with Brian Parker. I am he. And I am here this week with my panel. And we are going to get started in just a second, but definitely wanted to thank everyone for watching Head to Head and the Empower Network. This week, we are celebrating 6 months on the air. Woo!
Yay!
And yeah, 6 months. Who would have thought it? If you would have told me a year ago that this is what I would be doing on, during my free time, I would have told you were crazy. But if you would have also told me that we would still be in the middle of a global pandemic that would have killed over 450,000 Americans alone, I still would have thought you were smoking something, and I would have had another too. So I would have been wrong twice, which does not happen a lot. Just ask my wife. But anyway, thank you for everyone in the US, in Canada, Brazil, Peru, Nicaragua, United Kingdom, India, Argentina. We've definitely been busy. Yes. Finland. We've definitely been getting some love from all over. I know I missed one. I got to think about which one it is. But we've definitely been getting love from all over the world, and that is amazing. We've done over 20 episodes of Head to Head, 22 episodes of Head to Head Sports. We've got more and more podcasts that we're adding all the time, talk shows, comedy, things like that. So in the words of the very loud and obnoxious Kimberly Guilfoyle, the best is yet to come. Okay, sorry, I had to do it.
Right.
I had to do it. Anytime I control Trump, it's worth it every single time.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, so this week we have on the panel Miss Lori Parker. How are you, Lori?
I'm doing great, and I am she. Yes, my beautiful little cousin. That's right.
I didn't see that coming. I got nothing. And also in the house, we have Miss Kim Morrow. How are you?
I'm doing great. Big cousin is holding it down. Good to see you all. You know, we have a lot to talk about, and I do extend all of my condolences to each and every family who have lost loved ones through this pandemic. My prayers, my thoughts go out to each and every one of you. Please stay safe, stay healthy.
Absolutely. And we definitely want to extend that to folks in Texas and parts of Louisiana also going through the freeze blast, the weather that they're not used to down there that has basically crippled the city to a point where when you see the footage and things like that, you don't even believe that you're looking at the United States of America.
Right.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, we have family and friends. I do, which means, Brian, you all do too. My sister, niece and friends live there in Texas, and it has been horrible. And so it's hopefully somebody is going to have to answer, because it's just not right.
Absolutely.
You know, I share that same sentiment. You know, what normally happens during a crisis is people will say, well, there'll be plenty of time for us to point fingers and lay blame, and that's true, but it never happens.
Right.
But you know, the one thing I know is that when you piss white people off, some head gonna roll. Now, if this had only affected some of the more people of color or the folks that didn't have as much means and stuff, maybe not. You wouldn't hear about this as much. And not, you know, that's going to be controversial, and I'm okay with that. I'll wear it. But I stand by what I'm saying is that until you start pissing off well-to-do white people, then nothing really happens. But when you start messing with Karens and Ronnies and all of them, that's when you start to see action. Now, when you was messing with Peebo and Nuck Nuck and Lil Ted, not so much, not so much. But this has affected everybody. This is affecting people being able to have water and take showers. They're having gas leaks because pipes are busting. They're having water leaks because pipes are busting. And it's all being a result of the fact that Texas has their own grid. And it failed.
Yes.
They're having rolling power outages.
Right. And not to mention, unfortunately, some people have lost their lives, and a lot of people end up in the emergency room because they were doing whatever they could to keep warm. And that was too much of a devastating and fatal result of that.
Right.
So, yeah, you know, we're not pointing fingers. Facts is just facts.
Well, people are doing very, very dangerous things to stay warm. They're bringing propane inside their house. They have
generators.
They have the burners on their ovens all night long. They're burning whatever they can find. It's sad. I don't know any other word. It's just sad. It's ridiculous. All this technology we got out there, we can do all these other things. It's funny how some wind, some rain, and some snow can still cripple us like it does.
Yeah,
you know, as far along as we are, as far as along we are in this country, and we act like, you know, we can't, nothing can bring us down and everything else. Boy, you let some rain and some wind or some snow come, and it'll humble you. It'll show you exactly what you really are as far as significance in this world. I was talking to somebody earlier because we were joking about how the Charlotte Concord area is just supposed to get a little freezing rain and ice. And we had started talking about, I said, you know, I wonder if they just make that up sometimes to see how many of these fools gonna run over to the grocery store for bread and milk. Maybe sales of bread and milk is low. So they say, oh, it's gonna be some, because even without a drop of rain coming out of a cloud, boy, everybody run that grocery store and buy up all the bread and milk. And I've never figured that out because I'm like, well, you know, power go out, then your milk gonna go bad. So
canned milk. See, that's what people don't realize. Buy the canned milk, people.
I go a step further. I just keep some breast milk around me at all times.
No, you don't.
He's
Absolutely.
I just cut out the middleman myself. I just keep some breast milk around me at all times.
Well, I don't know where you're getting that one from.
If you ain't been pumping lately, then you might want to get to it.
That's not happening here. But the fact that in parts of Texas, and even as you had made a mention that people had no water, and they're actually, for what snow they had out there, they're boiling snow to get water, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
And letting it melt in the bathtub so they will have water and all of that. But again, when you are in a desperate situation and you will use, and like they say, by any means necessary of trying to survive. And so that's all they are doing. It's just trying to survive from one day to the next. And the sad thing is, where's the help? There's no help. That's what's the richest country in the what we say we're the richest in the world, and that just like New Orleans and what?
Well, the help.
No, but they want people to be self-sufficient. Because you should be able to figure this out.
The help is in Cancun.
Yes. Yes, Senator Cruz was on vacation. And he's rushing back while the rest of his fellow Texans are in despair.
So,
but he was supposed to be there until, he's coming back tonight, but he was supposed to be there until Saturday.
Well, yeah, Senator Ted Cruz, who often contradicts himself, when California was going through a bunch of rolling blackouts and stuff because of outages, because of the fires and things like that, which these idiots literally mailed California a bunch of rakes,
Right.
basically to troll them, because Donald Trump made one of the stupidest comments I've ever heard a grown person say, was that if you guys would simply rake your forest.
Right.
Yes. Rake the
Now,
leaves.
Has ever said any smart comment.
now, the reason that that's stupid to most people, but it ain't stupid for him. And I'll tell you why there's a difference. Because if you have ever raked a yard before, the concept of raking a forest would sound stupid to you.
Well, he doesn't know any better.
If you never picked up a rake, you wouldn't know the head from the stick of a rake, then that might make sense to you, because what's raking? You never done it before, so you really don't know what's all involved. This is the same person that said that you needed ID to buy a box of cereal. Obviously, he doesn't buy his own cereal or Big Macs. So he doesn't know what's all involved when he says those stupid things. It just reinforces that he's out of touch, as if we needed reminding of that. But Ted Cruz decided to try to troll California because they were having problems. So then when you say something, even if it sounds funny to you in the moment, make sure that it ages well. Because people will find your tweet, find your interview, your comment, and come back and say, well, how does that look to you now? And when they threw that back in his face about how now Texas is going through its issues, he says, I got nothing.
Of course, because they don't know when to scratch their head. Yeah, of course. They don't know whether to scratch their head or scratch their butts. When they say something, unfortunately, because people who don't know how to think for themselves and have a soup mentality will literally take everything they said. Look at the people who, when the ex said, oh, you could just drink some sanitizer and look what they did. Look at this. You had some people who literally took him for granted, and they did that. Oh my goodness.
Loyalty over common sense.
Right. Well, no, it's common sense ain't common sense to everybody.
It's not common.
That's
Common
true.
sense is not common.
Right.
It's not common at all. That is true.
But
But still, there was a certain sense of, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to put my life on the line to do what you're suggesting, even though common sense may not be common, something just don't sit right with you when somebody telling you the same thing that could take a stain out of this shirt need to go in my body.
Right.
And I got mold and I need to get rid of mold.
Right.
I can use some of this and make it kill the mold.
Well, look what happened January the 6th, and their defense was, well, that's not what he meant. That's what you got to realize who you're talking to. Listen, you got to take into consideration, and look, these people. That's what they hear and what we hear is two different things.
And he knew that, because
exactly.
when he said to Michigan, you need to take back our country or whatever it was, when it was talking about the coronavirus. That's when these fools showed up at the State House in Michigan with guns and Confederate flags.
Right.
And that's when they were all scaling the Capitol.
They did
like
it
they were Spider-Man.
Yeah, that was their test run. And then that's why some of them even took it a step further and devised a plan to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer.
Right. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Yeah, he knows the power that he has. As I called him, America's Hitler. And if people don't think so and don't see that, then you are still choosing to be blind. I don't care who I vote for. Their wrong is wrong, because the average citizen can't get away with not paying a parking ticket or a speeding ticket. But yet, you're going to justify for this person all because you voted for them, all because you voted for him, still doesn't make him right. It just
Right.
makes you both wrong. And you're going to
But they,
justify.
but it's better for them to be wrong, to be right in the wrong, and for loyalty. I was told something at one point that talking about bad behavior, and someone told me that, you know, in an organization or even in families, you have that crazy aunt or uncle, and you know, they do wrong or they do this one, but because they're sort of family or because they're loyal or whatever, you just kind of keep them around. Now, when I heard this from this individual, it really irked my spirit, because I said, no, it's still wrong.
Right.
And just because you have someone who's loyal going to these Trump supporters doesn't mean that you need to sit there and keep them. Now, these insane people scaling walls, doing this one, cracking windows, doing all of this, are now using the victim excuse, saying, oh, he told us what to do. I was just following direction.
Right.
But no one wants to be held accountable for their actions, because they're just making sure that they want to be in the right, which is really wrong, and because they want to sit there and maintain power and control.
All right,
Exactly.
so let me ask y'all this question. I'm gonna give you two examples that basically hopefully drive my point, even though they're not exactly comparable to what happened on January 6th, because in my defense, not a whole lot would be. But have you ever seen a parent that their kid is the second coming of Damien? Is the most evil child, hell thrower that you've ever seen in your life. But that parent, because it's their child, sees their child a certain way that no one else on this earth can share that vision, can see that child in that way. All they see is a terror, a future inmate, whatever you want to call them. I've seen some really bad kids, but if you talk to their parent, you would think they were a saint.
Exactly.
You would think
But until they become arrested,
you would think the kid could walk on water, could change water into wine, could do a whole lot of stuff, but you know that your eyes are not deceiving you, that this kid is pure hell. And there's something that a parent has inside of them sometimes, because I wasn't that way. But I've seen a lot of parents be blinded by the fact that because it's their child, they can't see it. However, that same parent that has that prejudice against their child can now look at somebody else's child and be like, that's a bad kid. And you're looking at them like, you're looking at them like, who are you talking about? When your kid is going to have numbers on his shirt, what are you talking about?
Well, that's a clear example of that case of the kid who went to Mexico who claimed the defense of affluenza because he was affluent, and with his
but it don't even have to go that far. I know what you're talking about, but I mean just regular people that are blinded by their kids, their relative, their boyfriend, their girlfriend, their parents, that they can't do any wrong, but other people that aren't as connected to that person can see it for what it is.
Well, that's just like when people would say, I can talk about them, but you can't.
But you better not.
I can say it, but you can't. So see, that's the problem with the double standards. And when the chickens come home to roost and that mess shows up at your front door, and truth will show up at your front door one day.
Right.
And so that's what we're seeing now, the double standards, remember we talked before, no line.
Right. But I brought that point up so that you didn't just take what Congress does as kind of like something out of the norm, because that's kind of embedded in a lot of human situations where we put our blinders on to things that we feel closer to. And you go, but Brian, what he did was egregious. Well, yeah, but I think if you also let your kid do some really crummy stuff without consequences, that's pretty egregious too.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so I think a lot of times, and so that's not me now by any means. I'm not defending what they did, but I've seen it before outside of the Beltway in Washington, D.C. I've seen it when the kids are at the supermarkets showing their ass and their parents just sit there and coddle them and give in to them when they pitch a fit and stuff like that. Like I just go ahead and smack my daughter in the mouth in the grocery store. Now I know I'm gonna end up with some people knocking on my door later, but you know what?
Right.
When the people leave, she gonna remember I ain't putting up with that.
That's right.
I ain't
We
putting up
know
with
how
that.
we
But
were
the
raised.
problem is a lot of them don't do that, and they end up letting their kids pump them.
Okay, another thing too, Brian, you got to remember that most kids are raised by their parents to think they are just as equal as an adult. And I tell people
Absolutely.
living out here in
As children,
California, no, 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 no,
yes.
no. You don't have a right. No child is equal to adult. You don't have a right to call anybody by their first name unless they have given you permission. You remember the little girl on the
Absolutely.
Oprah Winfrey show with Dr. Maya Angelou, and she stood up and asked her a question and called her Maya.
Yeah.
And Dr. Angelou said, well, no, 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 no. You don't have the right or permission to call me by my first name. You either call me Miss Angelo or Dr. We know whatever. She had to school her because see, that's what we've been teaching out. And I'm like, that's some of the stuff. You can do anything you want and get away with it. You are superior. See, when you don't have anyone to love you enough to teach you or tell you the truth, and that mess has been passed on for 3, 4, 5, 10 generations. And so they embedded that from the womb. And so that's what's been poured into them. So they don't know any different. That's what we're seeing being played out.
Right.
Okay. So that, I mean, and so to them, it's like, so.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean,
But
that's what they're
it's a,
supposed to do. That's what, to
but
them,
they say so until they have consequences, and then they come back with this victim mentality, like, well, oh, I didn't mean to do it, and oops, I guess it was really that bad. But they're not supposed to take pity on you when you get caught or you get caught in a lie. And it's like, absolutely don't want to sit here and coddle you. And this is the way that people in Congress want us to feel since our the Orange Julius has left the building. But we all have to sit here and coddle because, like, oh no, that was then. We're going to sit here and do this. No, I can't sit here and do this. That's why when the example with Ted Cruz, you talking about, oh no, I'm coming back to help my constituents. No, you weren't.
right.
Call it out. You was coming back on Saturday. You was gonna let them freeze.
Well, that's all right. They're going to hold him accountable, and election time is going to be coming up just around the corner. And so it's going to show up. And if not, then you are telling him and everyone that you can do whatever you want to us, and you can say whatever we want to, because we're loyal to the party.
right.
Okay, be loyal. Be loyal.
The question is going to be, does outrage turn into activism?
Right.
Or you just upset and then it wears off and then you go on about your business, and then that what you just said, Kim, it just reaffirms to him what Donald Trump said. I could practically shoot anybody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, not losing one voter. But you know what? People think Donald Trump is an outlier, and I totally disagree.
He is not.
You always been in a group, and you always had that one friend that would say what you thought, but you wouldn't say it, but they would. That's Donald Trump. See, Trump is in a group with the Republicans, and they've always thought these racist, xenophobic, homophobic, really isolationist things. They just would never say it. He says the quiet parts out loud.
Right.
So Ted Cruz, Marsha Blackburn, all of them, they believe the same. Mo Brooks, they believe the same thing. I could practically shoot somebody in the middle of Des Moines. I could practically shoot somebody in the middle of Houston. I could shoot somebody in the middle of Birmingham, Alabama, and get away with it because I'm white and I'm a congressperson, and that gives me an out. They all believe that. Trump
Yeah,
was
but
just
But
stupid
why?
enough to say it out loud because he don't know no better.
But
But why? But they are now being shamed for having that stance because even though, yes,
How?
they believe that, they
Hey man,
believed it.
wait a minute. Who's shaming them?
their constituents, because you got to remember, it's about loyalty. It's not about being wrong. It's about loyalty.
It is, but I want to know who's shaming these congressmen for having that mentality.
Well, the shaming, I think, I know the shaming has come from
Fact
the
checkers.
Republicans,
It's the media.
who
It's the
voted
fake
against.
news. They don't.
Right.
You know what? See, here's the thing. If CNN shames you, as you call it, so you get Breonna Keeler or Brooke Baldwin or somebody from CNN, or you get Rachel Maddow or Joy Reid from MSNBC, that only helps them. That feeds into the fact that the left-wing media is out to get me. So it goes back to your whole victimhood. Until you start to see Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson, Judge Janine, I would say Lou Dobbs, but he's looking for a place to work right now. But any of those cats in the news
Yes.
shame them, then when the liberal media does it, it only makes them, it increases their brain. You see what I'm saying? Because now, look, that's that cancel culture. He can't even take his daughter to Cancun without them talking about he need to resign. That's that elite cancel culture. That's cancel culture. Don't mind the fact that because Liz Cheney voted her conscience, Matt Gaetz travels from Florida to Wyoming to tell people they need to vote her out. Never mind the fact that Mitch McConnell delivers a ill-timed speech in the Senate floor the other day after acquitting Trump, but basically saying he's responsible and he did it. And now Sean Hannity on Fox News says, oh yeah, we need new leadership. So don't mind this cancel culture, but when the liberal media goes after one of ours, because remember, this is like what Kim said, we might be able to say it, but you can't say it.
Right.
That's where it all comes back again, where if ABC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN goes after a Republican, that's like wearing a badge of honor. Because to them, it's, well, the left-wing media ain't supposed to agree with me because they're an enemy of the people.
Exactly.
They're fake news. So if they're sitting there trying to shame me, it's because of their liberal agenda and their donors and George Soros, and you start going into the Rothschilds and all that crap again about all that stuff.
Yeah, well, see,
But
this
the people that are shaming them.
Yeah,
Who?
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kim.
Who's shaming them?
Well, I know the shaming is coming from the 7 Republicans that voted against Trump.
Yeah.
Their own family are seriously attacking them in every.
Yeah.
And y'all senator in North Carolina, Richard Burr, he has fooled a lot of them because now that is why Laura Trump is going to run for office. And nobody
disgusting.
with any.
I welcome it. I welcome it. She'll lose. She'll lose in a blink.
That's what I went on Facebook and told a lot of people, and it was over 600 people.
Bring it on, baby. Bring it on.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say about the shamers is that even though it's not by liberal media, but the shamers are undercover, are your grassroots people who are getting in and talking out for the next people that are voting for and everything else. Look at Stacey Abrams in Georgia. She started getting out the vote for everything else and making sure. So that's kind of your undercover shamers, so to speak, that is bringing up to highlight of your record, what you've done, what you've seen.
Right.
Yeah, but only time will tell what that converts into. Stacey really put forth, and some other groups down in Georgia, really put together a coalition of voting places and things like that and getting out the message. Now that you bring that up, if you look at it, because of the success that Stacey Abrams did have in Georgia, the Georgia Senate or legislature has already tried to introduce over 100 different bills to try to bring back some of those things, bring back polling sites, bring back how many days you can vote before the election. If there is a runoff and you weren't eligible to vote in the November election, even if you've had a birthday where now you're eligible to vote in that January runoff, they don't want you to be able to do that.
Right. Exactly. So
They're
they're
trying to
coming
come up.
up with other ways and
Dude,
tactics. Oh
they
gosh,
they
yes.
even they even introduced the whole thing now that would make it almost illegal for the Fulton County District Attorney to do what she's doing right now by opening up an investigation. They're trying to make
Against
it
Trump.
where you have to have a
Right,
committee that calls a grand jury
right.
because they're basically trying to make it where she can't indict Trump.
Well, I'm gonna say this to everybody because come 2022, it's gonna be time to vote again. And this is what I learned at a
Absolutely.
very early age. First time the victim, second time the volunteer. So you can sit back, not vote. You can ignore what's going on. You can be committed to loyalty and all of that. But remember, when it rolls around again, I don't know what else it's going to take. It's just like in an abusive relationship. How many times? Oh, look what I have to put up with. No, you don't. You choose to put up with that. Oh, I don't. No, it's a choice. It's a choice. So, okay, people, which one are you going to be? You're going to be the victim, or are you going to be the volunteer? Plain and simple. I don't care if your IQ is two points below soup or broth, which is nothing but fat and water. You still have to have some kind of sense. It may not be even common. Go borrow some, go buy some. I don't care. But just know, victim or volunteer, those are your only two choices.
It really is. It really, really is. That's a great way to put it. Because you can sit there and keep screaming victim, 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 but at some point, you got to realize that if you're the victim after all of that, it's because you have abdicated your power to that to continue to play the role of the victim. But
Exactly.
understand you're playing. At one point, you might have been the victim, but after that, you're just simply playing the role of the victim, meaning you
Exactly.
have a choice
Exactly.
whether you are or you are not.
There you go.
That's very true. So to put a bow on the Texas thing, I'm sure y'all heard of the very, very sympathetic, compassionate mayor of Colorado City, Texas, a man by the
Mhm.
name
Oh,
of
yes.
Tim Boyd, that
Yeah.
wanted you to know that while this winter storm was going on, that only the strong will survive and the weak will perish. He
Mhm.
wanted you to know that no one owes you or your family anything, nor is it the local government's responsibility to support you during trying times like this. Sink or swim, it's your choice. The city and county, along with power providers or any other service, owes you nothing. I'm sick and tired of people looking for a damn handout.
Yep.
That is from a mayor.
But then what did the
Yes.
governor say? What did the governor say? Oh, I had
Nothing.
no idea. They had no idea that one company owned the whole Texas. What you lying?
No.
You lying?
I'm gonna tell you what the governor said. The governor apparently, because anybody that knows Texas, and even though Beto O'Rourke came close, it's still a red state. Even though the governor, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, the state legislature, and most of the mayors are all Republicans.
Republican.
Somehow,
Right.
there's this girl in Brooklyn named Alexandria that got her bill passed called the Green New Deal, got it passed down in Texas, because now all of a sudden the governor in Texas is talking about the whole reason behind all of this is because some wind turbines stopped turning. So that's a good reason why the Green New Deal wouldn't work. Hey, dumbass, you do know that they have wind turbines in Alaska. You know that they do have wind turbines in Russia. You know that they do have wind turbines in Norway. What do all these places have in common? They are colder than Texas.
Right.
But you know what they do? They winterize their equipment. Oh, I'm wondering, did you ever get a recommendation to winterize your equipment maybe 11 years ago.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. What happened in New Orleans when they kept saying the levee's gonna break? The
Yeah.
levee's gonna break. The
We
levee's
got
gonna
it.
break.
They
We
just
got
let
it.
it go.
Yeah, and they
Y'all
start
go
taking
ahead.
that money.
Fine.
Yeah,
We know about
yeah,
them levies here. I guarantee. We know about them levies. I
yeah,
guarantee. Come have some gumbo. Come have some gumbo.
Get the Army of Engineers they'll just put a patch on it. It's fine. It's
Yep.
all great. No worries.
Ain't nothing gonna
You
happen.
don't have to plan anything.
Ain't no storm that big gonna come to New Orleans. I guarantee. I guarantee.
right. Exactly.
That's
So,
what happened.
okay, people.
That's what happened.
Okay, people.
You know what? You
You
know what happened
think
in
there's
Texas?
hope?
In
Right.
Texas, the government sat there and told them, "Hey, y'all, this happened in '89. This happened 11 years ago. When we have these big storms, your equipment hasn't been winterized. Now, why wouldn't you get it winterized? Well, because it costs money.
Yep.
So it's not that the wind turbines and the solar failed you. You failed you. The other
Exactly.
thing is that your power grid is not connected to any other power grid, so it means it cannot be regulated by the government. But had you had your power grid connected to other states, understand you would not have had rolling outages.
Right.
No, they would have been able to help you.
Right. Exactly.
It
Well, I'm
wasn't
gonna
They
say
there.
would have been able to help you.
I'm gonna say this to the people in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make, especially the conservative, so-called Christian, you want us a conservative Christian marriage and your values, okay? And everything is about abortion and same-sex marriage. Okay, those people who need food, shelter, and clothing, those people who are freezing and dying, trying to survive, although they were once in their mother's womb. That is somebody's child. They need help. Their mother chose to give them life. And this is what you do to them because it's all about abortion and same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Kim, I always say that they're pro-life until they're
Right.
not.
Exactly. Exactly. And then too, you so pro-life, especially in evangelicals, how many churches, and maybe I missed it, I want to know, how many churches with all these mega big churches and putting money in buildings?
There's Joel Osteen right now. Oh, I'm sorry, he ain't got no power. Oops.
Oh yeah.
My bad.
But,
He can't.
okay, my thing is, if you're so for pro-life, why don't you take some of that money, build orphanages, set it up for mothers to come and say, don't abort them, come over here, have that child and let us take care of them. Do you know of any
That's welfare. That's welfare, and they don't want to pay for it.
So
they don't want to pay for it.
Do something about it. Stop throwing the stones and be about it.
Oh no! Oh no! They definitely want to just have a whole bag of rocks to throw.
Right, because then they think that's doing something.
It is.
See, they think that's doing something.
It's shaming people that don't have the same means as them. It's always easier for them to stand on their heel and throw rocks down at people. But now, when they have to endure those same things, now it's a problem. Now it's called injustice. When we do it, it's called complaining. When it happens to them, it's called injustice.
Yes, absolutely. And with these blackouts that are in Texas and all of the big major cities in Dallas, and, oh my gosh, and all of those rich neighborhoods, and they have no water and no heat, and then for their 5,000 square foot homes, and they're just sitting there freezing and in icicles in their house.
And they can't flush the toilet.
No, they can't. They can't use it. You gotta use a bucket. Gotta use a bucket.
See, you got some people doing some things down there that they never thought that they would have to confront.
Have to do.
Exactly.
But that a lot of people, for them having to use that bucket, for them to have to sit there and have buckets of water to throw in the toilet to throw it, flush, that is an everyday thing for them. That is called Thursday.
Right.
But for a lot of them, they haven't had to touch that kind of life. They're having to now brush up and do things that they thought that they were well past.
Well, It'll teach you. We always want to go to other countries and tell everybody how to treat their people. And we're so busy running over there and doing missions work and building orphanages for them and helping them do this. But what are you doing right here in your own
Nothing.
backyard, in your own front yard, in your own land? See, you give $1 million a month away to missions. I know a church in Texas. $1 million a month to missions. Okay, take that $1 million a month and build an orphanage and tell those mothers to come. Don't abort your child. We'll take care of it. We'll raise it, whatever. Why aren't you doing that since you're throwing stones and it's about sanctity of life? Okay, so if it's about sanctity of life, people, look the way people are living in Texas. Look what's happening in this nation. If it's so about sanctity of life, what are you, I'm talking to the evangelical church. What are you doing other than throwing your stones and all of that? Because I don't see your actions.
Right.
I see it going somewhere else. But right what's in your face, you're doing nothing about it.
We have tent cities in downtown Charlotte. I mean, literally 150, 200 tents.
And they making them move. They're going to make a move.
Yes.
They have to move.
They got to make a move because they're making the owners have to clean up all the feces and everything else because now they have a rodent infestation. So before they can start, they have to treat the rodents, but they can't have people there because they don't want the liability that they end up getting sick from the roach spray and stuff.
The poison. Mm-hmm.
Poison. So they are see, here's the thing. Now they're finding them places to stay. You could have been doing that. How many nights have they been outside freezing?
Right.
You know, they act like Houston is an isolated incident. These people been out here forever.
Right.
Freezing. And now because these people's property is smelling like crap and there's infestation of rodents, oh, now you see them.
Right.
You ain't see all them tents.
Just like out here in Los Angeles.
Going to downtown Charlotte up Tryon Street without seeing tents.
Well, that same thing here is downtown Los Angeles, tent city.
Yeah.
This is one of the richest parts of the whole country. You have Beverly Hills, you have Brentwood, you have Hollywood, you have all of these rich areas, one of the most wealthy people. And how many churches are going down there and taking their millions instead of doing missions work in another country, bringing their millions and doing something about the homeless? They're not.
Yeah.
They're not.
Well, no one wants to deal with it until it's in their face, and then they claim it's a problem, or we need to now sit here and address it. Or when you see individuals that are homeless, that now there's increased crime because they're trying to find food or they're trying to find shelter. This is when the problem is, and then this is when I have a problem with all of these our victims talking about they're working for their constituents. Now I feel horrible for those people that are in Texas and that are suffering, but these people have been suffering. Other people have been suffering for years and they choose not to look at it. But then we're going to sit here and say America is so great and it's wonderful and all of this, but it's not. And unfortunately, these last couple of years have been a mirror to America. I feel that it's showing them it's not that great. You can't keep trying to keep selling that story that, you know, America's fabulous and great.
Because where the last 4 years, the female veteran that was shot and killed at the Capitol, before that, she did a video down there in Los Angeles at Tent City talking about, where's Biden? Where's Harris? Well, what was Trump? Those 4 years, you're going to make America great. She didn't say nothing about that. Where are they? What was Trump? Those same people been down there for however how long. If you were making America great again, then where was he in the last 4 years with those people down there? See, that's the brainwashing and the ignorance of blaming somebody else. And she was outraged. Where are they? Where are they? Well, what was the same place Trump was? Same place Trump was.
And honestly, I'm gonna say it.
He doesn't care.
It ain't got nothing to do with whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or none of the above. It's more about class.
Exactly.
It's more about when you have a lot, you don't see people that don't.
Right.
Only people that matter to you are the people that the fact that you have a lot, the people that you
Exactly.
really aspire to be around are the people that have more so that you can get some of what they got.
Exactly.
That's who they hang around. So they do not see those other people. And I say that as somebody that recognizes that whether it's a Republican or a Democrat in the White House, has always been a problem. Trump didn't
Right.
create that problem. Obama didn't create that problem.
Exactly.
Clinton didn't create that problem. The Bushes didn't create that problem. Reagan didn't create that problem. It's been here.
Right.
It's been here.
Absolutely.
But it's
Right.
the hypocrisy of it where we sit there and we try to get on our high horse. We do talk about make America great again, or they do talk about that, but it's code. It means a certain kind of person for America to be great. What they're saying
Yes,
is
make
that
America white
if you
again.
start to include
Exactly.
people, if you start to expand voting, if you start to give people more rights, if you start to sit there and be more accepting of gays and transgenders and all of this and the other, our country is going to hell and it will not be great anymore because everything that we held on to so tightly is being taken away from us. That is a cry of fear. They are afraid of change because to them, they're going to be on the short end of that change. They're only on that
Exactly.
short end of change because of their own
Exactly.
prejudice, xenophobia, homophobia. That's why they're on
Yes.
that short end of that. They're embracing the world as it was, not as what it's aspiring to be. They're
Well,
going to go out kicking and screaming versus accepting the changes that are coming.
Well, I suggest that everybody would go back and read the history of Hitler and how all of that got started. It started from his fear. It
Yeah.
Yes.
started from his fear.
Always fear.
Absolutely.
And so go back, and if you don't see America's Hitler
Yep.
that's happening in the last 4 years and still trying to take place, then okay, you want to stay blind, stay blind. Stay blind.
Kim, I'm glad you brought that up because I did a weekend roundup the other day, and I brought up the subject of is the GOP dead? No, and sometimes you ask a question that you already know the answer to, but you kind of really want to see where everybody else is with it. So I will say this. To me, the GOP is definitely dead. And what put the nail in the coffin was the fact that out of 50 eligible Republican senators that had a vote to do the right thing to convict Donald Trump of high crimes and misdemeanors for incitement of insurrection, decided that it was more important to defend the party instead of the country,
Yeah.
even when it meant them
Absolutely.
being in the crosshairs of potentially being assassinated.
Right.
That the Republican Party has officially decided that even though Donald Trump does not occupy 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, that he, for the foreseeable future, will be their standard bearer.
Yep.
That to me says the Republican Party is dead. Because,
Yes.
and that's an important thing, not only for us as a country to realize, but for the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to realize as well. Because he ran on a platform of bipartisanship. Now, I kind of see they doing some Republican stuff by redefining what that really means. But I'm kind of okay with it because it's true. What he's saying now is that even if we don't get any Republicans to buy into our $2 trillion COVID relief package, it is still going to be bipartisan for the simple fact that the majority of the country, Democrats and Republicans, agree with what we're doing. So that would be bipartisan because both parties agree. That's really not what the term means. It really does mean that you have your Democrats and Republicans working
Voting
together
together.
across the aisle and stuff and contributing, or the fact that we're going to open it up for debate. And if there's anything that we should put in there that they recommend that we think, then we'll take it. But if not, we won't. But the fact that we at least gave them the opportunity is bipartisanship. Whatever you want to call it is fine. And
Yeah,
as
but
much
you,
as I love,
you have,
as,
you
oh,
have
go
to
ahead.
remember that President Biden, Joe Biden, came from that era of
Yeah,
bipartisanship. He
he
used to
did.
go sit with his
Absolutely.
friend John McCain.
Absolutely.
John McCain used to go
John
sit with
McCain
him.
gone. He
That
doesn't
doesn't
work.
work anymore. That's the
Yeah,
old school, all old idea. It doesn't work
they gone.
anymore.
No, it
It
doesn't.
doesn't work. So as far as
Bob Dole is gone.
exactly, as far as the GOP being dead, when I think about, you know what I think about? Jim Jones. Not only Hitler, but Jim Jones.
Jim Jones.
It's either way, they didn't have a choice. If
Yeah.
you try to leave, we're going to kill you. So you're going to stay here and you're going to drink this Kool-Aid just like the rest of us, and we all going to die together. That's what I think about Hitler and Jim Jones when it comes to the GOP. They
Yeah.
are stuck. Thank God 7 of them had enough sense to say, oh, no, 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 no. I'll take my chances. I'm not drinking your Kool-Aid, and I am going to escape, and you will not kill me.
And all
So,
seven have been retaliated against from their own party.
exactly.
Yes.
So they're trying to kill him. They're trying to kill him. They say like, oh, no, 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 I'll take my chances. I may have to walk with not my back to you, walking out with my back to you, with my face to you, but I'm walking up out of here.
Yeah.
I'm getting up out of here. So I met a young girl when I lived in Sacramento. Her family was part of the Jim Jones thing, unfortunately. Her uncle, 2 uncles, was the one that escaped and was able to tell the story. Her grandmother, her aunt, and another uncle died through the Jim Jones thing. And so if we are not seeing this kind of stuff still being played out, history will repeat itself. If you're not seeing a Hitler and a Jim Jones mentality that is happening within the GOP, and you still want to justify and sugarcoat it and be blinded and all of that, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. And you know, the thing I found so pathetic is the fact that Mitch McConnell is trying to have his cake and eat it too.
Right.
He wants Donald Trump out of the party so badly, but he understands that a lot, and he's pretty much safe in Kentucky because even though his approval ratings are low, they ran McGrath against him and she still couldn't come up against him.
Right.
So he's pretty safe, but he knows that a lot of his fellow senators are not as safe. That's how they lost Arizona. That's how they lost Georgia. Texas is getting closer and closer. Florida could be in play for at least one of those seats. So there's a lot of them that are vulnerable to him saying full let's dump Trump campaign. All of them can't do that because so many of them have tied themselves to Trump, and so many of their constituents are Trump's base. That if Trump decided to say, hey, y'all, I'm starting the Trump party, y'all come on over, then the Republican Party would become a minority party, more minority than it already is. It really already is a minority party. The problem is the Electoral College keeps them on equal footing, even though they should not be. But anyway, so McConnell's straddling the line by saying, okay, well, if he was still president, I would really consider convicting him, which we already know, no, you wouldn't.
Right.
Because he kept delaying everything.
And he didn't have to prove it because he intentionally delayed it until after the inauguration. And then he says, well, we can't really try the guy because he ain't president no more. Well, Mitch, they were ready. They impeached him right after this. They could have delivered the articles to you, but you're the one that said, well, the Senate's in recess. And even though if Schumer and myself agree to bring them back, we could bring them back, have the trial while he's still the president. But you aided and abetted in the crime, and then you run out the clock and say, well, the statute of limitations have passed. You the one that ran out the clock, Mitch.
Right.
You can't have it both ways.
Well, he knew what he was doing. Mitch is not
Yeah, he
stupid.
knew what he was
doing. He knew exactly
no.
what he was
whether
doing.
you like Mitch McConnell or not, the one thing he's not is stupid. He might be unethical. He might be a slime ball. He might be a scumbag. And I would agree with you. He is all of those. But what he's not is stupid. He knew that all I got to do is, it's like if you ever watched North Carolina basketball back in the old days, when Dean Smith have a lead on you, he called this play called the four corners. Right. And all that means is that we ain't gonna score no more, but we ain't gonna let you score neither. So he would spread out his team in the four corners of the court, and they just pass the ball to each other until the clock run out. And that's how they win the game. Yeah. That's a true thing. The four corners offense by Dean Smith.
Mitch McConnell is a double agent.
Yes, he is.
He is a double agent.
Bingo.
But the thing about being a double agent, someone is going to kill you. I don't care which side you take.
You're gonna get caught slipping. You're gonna get got because everybody is ready for you to turn your back to them. And you can't keep not having your back against somebody. You always gonna have your back against somebody. Somebody gonna get you, Mitch. I ain't talking about, really taking you out. I ain't hoping that on you, because you up there in age, that's gonna happen pretty quickly anyway. But I'm saying somebody can take you out politically eventually. Because Mitch isn't going to be extreme enough for the wave that he's trying to hold off. He's trying to hold off those Marjorie Taylor Greens in the House of Representatives. He's trying to hold off Josh Crowley, Ted Cruz, some of these other crazy cats out there now that are starting to get these congressional seats. You can't hold them all off, Mitch. The problem is that they've been warning you that the dam done already broken, the water coming downhill, and now you think you can just hold the gate shut. It ain't gonna work like that, bro. It ain't gonna work like that. They've been telling you that your party was out of control, but y'all kept sitting there acting like Texas. We got this. We can handle this. Y'all mind your own business.
But the grand old party.
Right. But do y'all ever think that that's what they want to play out so that they can end up having split the party?
Well,
and end up having, because see, like you said,
I don't know, Kim, because that doesn't help them for 2022. What's going on right now as a Democrat, I love it. Watching Trump and McConnell go back and forth, and because this is what happens. Because the Senate trial was another loyalty test. If we vote against Trump, then you saw what happened to those people when they went back to their hometowns, right? So this is basically not a thing of whether Trump is guilty. It is a loyalty test. So now if you've got McConnell on one side and Trump on another side, then you will really see how many real Republicans you have left and how many fringe you have. And I'm sorry, Mitch, you're probably going to be severely outnumbered.
But how did they end up with an independent party? How did they end up with all these other, even though they're small, how did they end up with all these other political parties? Small beginnings. You have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And so with 70+ million people, like you said before, Brian, I'll take 35, 40 of them with me, and we'll have this party over here because they know how to recruit.
The problem is this: you're diluting. See, this is what happened to the Georgia race, for instance. Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler and another candidate split the vote between three people.
Right.
Now, Warnock beat her, but he could not get over 50% because the third party person peeled too many votes off to both of them.
Right.
Now, when they got rid of the third party person and it was just head to head, then that's how he got over 50%. So
Right.
the Republican Party, as um, jacked up as they are, they need each other. The Trump people can't win without the standard staunch Republicans, and the staunch Republicans know that they need that QAnon, they need that Trump fringe to push them over the finish line too. If they divide, then you're automatically handing everything to the Democrats, and I couldn't be more proud of that. I'm glad, because when they divide it like that, now you're splitting up their base. Now you're splitting up the fact that they can't have a strong party because you've broken it in half. You know, if I take a glass and I break it in half, it ain't no good.
Right.
That's all they're doing. They're incomplete that way. So they're
No, but
actually, the longer this feud goes on, the worse it's going to be, because 2022 will be here soon. What's going to happen is, and Mitch has already said, hey, I'm just going to find the most electable people. Well, what you're basically saying is that if they're Trump nuts in some places, you're going to back them. And if they're regular Republicans, whatever the heck that means now, you'll back them too. So you'll just let anything into your tent as long as you can be majority leader again. That's all he wants. All Mitch wants is his job back. He blames Trump because if Trump had sat there and backed Perdue and Loeffler more in Georgia, we wouldn't be having this conversation now, because it would be 52-48. And
Well,
Joe
they
Biden
just
wouldn't be able
proved
to
that.
get anything done. Kamala Harris would have no power because she would not be a tiebreaker unless they could get moderate Republicans to agree with Democrats.
But he just proved that. Didn't he just prove that by his vote? But okay,
Exactly.
let's talk
That's
about
my
this.
point.
Let's talk about this for a moment. The
Okay.
same thing of political divide within a party can happen to the Democrats. Why?
It
We
is
have the
happening.
it's
bipartisan.
happening now.
I know it is, but I'm talking about to the
happening
extent that is to the extent with the Republicans. So you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, bipartisan, modernist, progressive, and all these others out there with their own agendas.
Right.
Sooner or later, that's going to start happening to the Democrats too. So everybody is going to start to try to form their own parties within the parties, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
then that's going to weakening not only the Republicans, it's going to weaken the Democratic Party as
Amen.
well.
Exactly.
And that's the problem we have now with, and you know, before the election, I said this was going to happen. Joe Manchin is a Democratic senator from West Virginia that is in a red state, and somehow he has held onto his seat for over 20 years. Joe Manchin straddles the line. Sometimes he keeps his distance from the Democrats as far as being out there promoting certain things, but he's a very moderate, I call him he's a Republican to me, but he swears up and down that he's a Democrat. Right now, he's giving the Democrats a hard time because there's certain things he does not want to support. Same thing with Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona. They are some of your more moderate, conservative Democrats. Back in the old days, they used to be called Blue Dogs. It was a whole bunch of them, and they were called Blue Dog Democrats because they were basically fiscally conservative Democrats, not socially conservative. There's a difference. So what happens is when it comes to budget spending, reconciliation, they're more budget hawks. They're more dollar hawks. So Joe Manchin right now is fighting the $15 minimum wage because he believes West Virginians don't need it. And and some of his constituents are actually now starting to voice up and say, yeah, we do. He said, well, that $15 makes sense in LA. That $15 makes sense in New York. But in West Virginia, that's too much.
Right.
And one thing I wanted to point out that we did not report correctly on the last show, and I know Jermaine was speaking real fast with it, but he had mentioned that the federal minimum wage would only affect federal workers. That's not true. Biden had already placed a minimum wage for federal government workers, where it had to
Right.
be at least that. What they're talking about doing is making it mandatory that the bare minimum wage in any state is $15 an hour. If that state chooses to go higher than that on their own, they certainly can, but at the very minimum. So that poster that you see in the break room says $15 an hour. It doesn't say $7.25 or $9 or whatever it is in your particular state. It has to say 15. It'll say 15 on the federal poster, but if your state does 20, then the state poster will say 20.
Right.
But
Exactly.
but we have not had a minimum wage increase since 2009. Yet the cost of living, inflation, and everything else has gone up. And Joe Manchin is arguing that people living in a coal industry state that is trying to transition to clean energy could not benefit from having a $15 minimum wage. And he is a Democrat.
Well, he's putting the own noose around his own neck. And this is for one reason.
Yes.
When you are that conservative and you're giving the big tax breaks to the rich and the big corporations and everything, a Republican friend of mine posted on Facebook of all these self-service machines. I work for the airlines, everybody's doing it. Well, they were doing it with $7 an hour. That has nothing to do with $15 an hour. Has nothing to do with it. So it proves the point. Those big corporations have taken their tax break and all that kind of stuff, and still look what they're still doing. Look what they're still doing. Getting rid of people. So how is that creating jobs for the American people? What do you expect these people to do?
And somebody got to build
They're
those
also
kiosk
saying,
machines.
yes, and they're also saying that, yes, and they're and the having the minimum wage at $15 an hour is going to cost more jobs than create them, which to me makes no sense.
It doesn't. That's just the story that they always use, that they always lie, the hypocrisy and all of that. But it is reaping time, America. It's reaping time for what's been sown. And what's happened with the pandemic, what has happened with you saying $15 an hour is too much, and we need to keep giving the corporate rich and all of them the big tax break because it's going to trickle down, which we know is a lie. All of that
economics does not work.
Exactly. So it's reaping time because people, like we said on previous shows, as long as you thought that you were doing it to Tyrone and Tamika, but you don't realize you're doing it to Karen and Kyle too. And Karen and Kyle is angry. Why? Because they're pulling up in the food line too now to get food. They probably never thought it would happen to them, but it has happened. The chickens are coming home to roost. Cal and Karen are losing their homes. Cal and Karen now can't afford to send their kids to college. Cal and Karen now don't have health care. Because now the chickens have come home to roost, and you were so busy trying to do it, stick it to us, and then now you're sticking it to yourself.
All of those either church-based food programs have seen triple number increases on the amount of individuals coming to food pantries, where they were serving maybe 400 or 500 families maybe throughout the year, where now they're serving 3,000. And their costs are just going out of control. And now these same people, the ones I would say, these individuals that on January 6th that were having a big tantrum about America, and then climbing up on walls. And I said, now that they're sitting here angry, but they're doing it to themselves, but they still refuse to acknowledge that they've done this to themselves, and they still want to be able to blame us for making all of their woes.
Exactly. That's the way they've been taught. They don't know any better, and they don't care. And this is what I'll say again, people. You don't have to be stuck on stupid. You don't. You can, like the video about the young lady who was part of QAnon. She came, she said, my parents taught me that. They told us that we are Republicans and we're going to always be Republicans no matter what. So that loyalty, no matter what, we are Republicans no matter what. She said, then she got into the QAnon, and then she just so happened to start thinking for herself. And she started questioning, and she started doing her research. And then she started saying, oh, no. Just like those 7 Republicans woke up, people wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. I don't care who you vote for, but just know it's going to come back home one day and hit you right in your face. Truth seems so strange right now. Truth seems so strange because we have lied so much that people believe in the lies quicker than they believe the truth. Oh my God.
Well,
And what we have to do with your problem?
Isn't that saying about the a lie make it around the world twice before the truth can get out of bed?
In tie his own shoes.
Ties on shoes, yeah. So, and I know I mangled it, but I knew it was something like that. And I there was somewhere I was gonna go, but if I go there, it'll be a whole nother hour. So I'm gonna leave it for the next conversation, but I'm gonna give you a peek. This is what I want you to think about for this whole week, and we'll talk about it next week. We talk about the extremism. We talk about QAnon. We talk about people having these ideas and these beliefs. We talk about people, as Kim said, where they were told at an early age, this is who we are, this is what we believe, and all that other kind of stuff. And they don't question it because they never have a reason to. We see this kind of stuff in our sports. People grow up Dallas Cowboy fans and they DCL for life. They don't know why they love the Cowboys. They love the Cowboys because my parents love the Cowboys. That there's a friend of mine in Charlotte, or I don't know if he's a friend, it's somebody I know, that now is disowning the Washington football team because he always grew up a Redskins fan and he's always had Redskins gear. And now because he can't say that word anymore, it's not on their team's website and all that stuff, and they're not using that moniker anymore, he's ready to leave a team that he's rooted for over 40 years. So answer this, but don't answer it right now. How is any of this different from people having their own religious beliefs? Because there are a lot of religions out there. There are a lot of people out there that believe in something that you cannot prove exists, but you just know it deep down in your heart. Just as much as the QAnon person believes deep down in their heart, come March the 4th, Donald J. Trump will be re-inaugurated because he's still president. He's just going to be re-inaugurated on March the 4th. I'm going to leave it there because I already know that, man, that could be a whole nother hour. I'm going to have people blowing me up all week talking about Jesus is real. Don't you be comparing no QAnon to the Jesus. And I'm not, but I'm saying, think about it, because there's a lot of blind faith that we use in the Christian realm that people from QAnon to the KKK to a lot of these organizations can turn around, and some of the things that they say, if it wasn't so crazy, would sound like religion.
Right.
And for some of them, it is a religion. It's just not so religion. But, you know, then you get into the whole conversation about, hey, how you gonna tell me my religion is any worse than your religion? You believe in something too, and all those kind of things. So we'll get into that next week, because I think that's gonna be a hit right there. Hopefully I don't get no death threats. Hopefully my wife gonna continue to speak to me. But if not, you know,
I'll think about it. I still speak to you.
If not, it's been real. But that's going to be our time for today. I want to thank my panelists, Miss Lori Parker. She. Kim Morrow. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining us. And we will definitely see y'all next week. Definitely, if you would like to be a panelist, as you can see, we just peel it back and go all in. Please let us know, theparkermedia@gmail.com. Until then, we'll see everybody. Y'all stay safe out there.
it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket, talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma, gotta get it, get it.